Hey Browns fans! We have a lot to talk about after the Browns' tough loss to the Raiders, and you won't want to miss any of it. Before we dive into today's news, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates from your favorite team. So here we are again, Browns fans. Another disappointing result, and it's starting to feel a lot like 2017, isn't it? The Browns fell to 1-3 after a frustrating 20-16 loss to the Raiders, a game in which they started with a strong 10-0 lead but couldn't hold on. The Raiders, without star players like Davante Adams and Max Crosby, managed to score 20 straight points, and despite some glimmers of hope from Deshaun Watson, it just wasn't enough. Now, Deshaun has had his moments. He completed 24 of 32 passes, threw for 176 yards, and had a touchdown. But he also threw an interception and had an 82-yard bomb to Amari Cooper nullified by a holding penalty on Nick Harris. That's the kind of stuff that's killing this team: missed opportunities, costly mistakes. Even when Watson made a big play, something else went wrong. Our defense managed to score a touchdown, but we gave up 152 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, including one to CVCA alum Trey Tucker. That kind of defensive lapse is tough to watch, especially when you know this defense is capable of so much more. Remember, this is a unit that was among the best at creating turnovers last year, but this season, we've yet to see that level of dominance. On social media, Browns fans were vocal, and it wasn't pretty. Former Browns QB Bernie Kosar tweeted about really bad football in the second half, and it's hard to disagree. We had the game in control early, but after the Raiders scored 20 unanswered points, it was all downhill from there. Jason Cole summed it up perfectly, saying, "It's like the story of Watson's time in Cleveland in 4 plays, pointing to the final drive where we were so close but couldn't capitalize." Look, I get it, Browns fans, it's frustrating. We see flashes of brilliance. Watson had some good throws, but when it came to those crucial moments, whether it was the offensive line, a drop, or a penalty, everything seemed to fall apart. The best way to sum it up? As Nick Wilson of 92.3 The Fan put it, this is not a team that cares enough to compete. When it's easy, they're all in, but when adversity hits, they hide like Donatello. Now, we've heard it all week, you are what your record says. Well, at 1-3, that's not a good look. We can sit here and talk about all the what-ifs. What if Cooper hadn't dropped the ball? What if Harris hadn't been called for holding? What if the defense hadn't let the Raiders run all over us? But the scoreboard doesn't lie. We're 1-3, and our offense has scored just 6 touchdowns in 4 games. The Browns' offense, averaging less than 18 points per game, has been a big talking point. Yes, we've had injuries on the offensive line, but so have the teams we play. Part of being a good team is finding ways to work around those injuries, and right now, we're not doing that. Our defense, which allowed 20 points in this game, should have been enough to secure a win, especially against a struggling Raiders team. But once again, missed tackles and a lack of big plays hurt us. It's hard to believe how the Raiders, who barely ran the ball in their first 3 games, suddenly found success on the ground against us. Watching the Browns right now is tough, and I know many of you are feeling the same way. There's frustration because we know this team has talent, but we're underachieving. We're not seeing those big plays when it matters most, and it seems like every time we get close, something goes wrong. So where do we go from here? We have a long road ahead of us, and it's not going to get any easier, especially with a hot rookie QB in Jaden Daniels and the Commanders waiting for us next week. The question is, can this team bounce back? Can we fix these mistakes and start playing to our potential? I want to hear from you, Browns fans. What do you think is going wrong? Is it the playmaking, the injuries, the execution, or all of the above? After falling to a 1-3 record, there's been a lot of finger-pointing going on in Cleveland, and honestly, there's a lot of blame to go around. The Browns have failed to get the job done in a number of key areas, especially in their loss to the Las Vegas Raiders last Sunday. Tied for the bottom of the AFC North, the pressure is on. The offense? It's been disappointing, to say the least. The Browns have managed just 15 points, and let's not forget, 6 of those have come from the defense. Yes, the defense is here to save the day. Late in the game, the Browns had a chance to win by driving down the field, but Deshaun Watson was fouled while trying to extend the play, and the Raiders were able to run the clock, sealing Cleveland's fate. After the game, head coach Kevin Stefanski took a lot of the blame, which really shows why he's so beloved by his players. He took the final call on the offensive play, saying, "I've got to give them a better play. We've got to make a play there." It's that responsibility that makes him a true player's coach. And let's not forget, this was a Raiders defense without Max Crosby, and they entered the game ranked 30th in the NFL in yards allowed per game. Yet the Browns only managed 241 yards of offense. To put that in perspective, the Raiders were giving up nearly 390 yards per game before facing Cleveland. It's frustrating, and Stefanski knows it, saying, "Obviously, I'm really disappointed with that outcome. Not for lack of effort, but man, we were able to capitalize on some opportunities there, and we didn't. So we'll learn from that, and we really have to focus on ourselves." Deshaun Watson finished the day with 24 completions on 32 attempts for 176 yards and a touchdown. But the offense as a whole just couldn't get going. Watson threw an interception off a drop by Amari Cooper, something we didn't expect to see from a Pro Bowl receiver like him. It was just a tough day for everyone. Now, looking ahead, the Browns face the Washington Commanders, who have been hot lately with some solid wins under their belt. It's not going to get any easier from here. Browns fans, what do you think? Do you think Watson and Stefanski will turn things around, or are we in for another tough season? This game was a close one, and it felt like we were watching an all-too-familiar Browns story unfold. Amari Cooper makes a huge play, catching a deep pass from Deshaun Watson that could have turned the tide and maybe even saved our season. Cooper crosses the goal line, and we're ready to celebrate until the flag comes out. Holding on. Not again. This 20-16 loss wasn't just any loss, it felt like the kind of heartbreak we see all too often. While the Browns have more talent on the roster now thanks to Andrew Berry, and Kevin Stefanski's resume is stronger than his predecessors, it still feels like some things never change. And while we have Watson at quarterback now, with a guaranteed $230 million contract and all that comes with it, Sunday's performance felt eerily similar to past failures. Watson's pass to Cooper bouncing off his chest for an interception? You could have mistaken that for something we saw with Deshaun Kaiser and Corey Coleman. The defense? Jim Schwartz's unit, which should be elite, gave up 152 rushing yards to a Raiders offense that had barely run the ball in its previous games. Penalties took a touchdown away from the lead, and there was a miscommunication on key plays late in the game. Sound familiar? And while it's easy to blame Watson for not living up to expectations, the truth is that the struggles run deeper. The offensive line is banged up and leads the league in sacks allowed. Our receivers are dropping passes at an alarming rate. Sure, Watson hasn't been perfect, but it's hard to win when so much is going wrong around you. What do you think, Browns fans? Can we turn this season around, or are we stuck in the same cycle again? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for the latest news. Go Browns!